we all are very, very aware of the great relationships you have with your students. It's so evident, and that's why we just wanted to ask you to talk about like those relationships that you build with your students and how you create a sense of autonomy in the classroom where your musicians really have a voice in your rehearsal. I'm just kind of wondering if you would talk about that a little bit. Yeah.
Okay, just like we're talking
Sure.
now. Okay, all right. Well, with the leadership, it's senior leadership. So every year, all of the social and any kind of extra things are run by the seniors. So at the end of the year, it usually happens at graduation, when we play our graduation together, and they all move up. Now they are the leaders of the orchestra.
All of them.
All of them. But what we do is I meet with the whole senior class, and I call them in, and we had set up a remind. I did group me this year. And we pick a date in May. We pick it for the first week of school. We all put it on our calendar. And all of the seniors who want to come to that meeting, that's when we meet, and that's when we organize the year. And so I always leave it up to them on how they pick their leadership. And I give them some models. I say, okay, you can nominate, like we can have one president, one vice president, one secretary, or you can have co-presidents, co-vice presidents, however you want to set it up. This is your organization. That's how you do it. And I say, go ahead and talk about it. But if you're going to be nominated, you need to have someone else nominate you, and you're going to need to address the group and let them know why you think you would be the best person for that job. You have 10 minutes, go ahead and talk. So then I kind of hang out and they talk. So last year, what last year's senior group did is they defined the responsibilities of the officers in their conversation.
Now, were there titles that you provide, or they can choose those roles as well?
Yeah, I give them a framework. I said normally it's president, vice president, treasurer, but if you want to deviate from that, it's okay. So that group last year, with no direction, they decided in their group work they would define what that meant. So the president is going to be responsible for this, vice president, and then they presented to the group. Then we had nominations, and there happened to be only 2 for each group, and they had decided ahead of time that they wanted to have codes for each group. So it was very clean and very easy, and that leadership happened. This year, I don't know if they had talked to the seniors last year. I gave them the same task. I didn't give them any guidance. I said, you're going to discuss how you're going to do this. And at the end of that, they said, Mr. Palmer, we've picked our officers. And so I said, okay, well, let's start with secretary first. So they introduced the secretary, and they talked about why they had decided they wanted to do it. And then she took the notes for the rest of the meeting. That's why we did secretary first, right? And they each had agreed that this is what they wanted to do, but they added a position on their own, and they wanted a director of outreach because they recognized that the numbers from 8th to 9th were low. And they wanted somebody responsible to be in charge of preparing activities for the middle school to help get that built up.
So specifically for that recruitment piece and building relationships with your 8th graders.
Yep. And I didn't give them any guidance or any suggestion, but I've been talking with them about my concern, and they know that I'm going to be going there twice a week.
Sure.
So they're concerned about their legacy. They don't want to leave and the program get smaller. So they felt that was important. And the person that I probably would have thought would have been President Zanab is the one who's the director of outreach, because she really feels like she's great at it.
Yeah, she's very good at that.
Yeah. And so at the end of all that, I said to the group, now this is your opportunity now. If you feel like you still want to be a part of leadership, to speak up. This is your opportunity now to do that. And there was no one that came forward. A couple of them said, well, I didn't do it because I really I'm a behind the scenes person. I want to be a worker. And then before I met with the officers in a small group, I told them that the officers are only facilitators, that the voice of the organization is them. It's the senior class. That's the voice, and it's their responsibility as a senior class to get the feel of what the rest of the organization wants and needs, communicate that effectively to the board, and then the board's job is to create opportunities where they can meet those needs.
Love it.
And that's how we started. That was how it went. And so they have a task this weekend to plan next week, how we're going to welcome everybody in and what activities they're going to do. So the officers are leading a discussion on the group meet with all the seniors.
I love it.
So I went to that model probably about 5 or 6 years ago because it gets everyone involved. It's not just the seniors doing it. They're organizing it, but they're soliciting all of the younger kids. And then the younger kids are waiting. They're watching the seniors and they're waiting until they can be in that senior leadership.
Sure.
And one of the big things have been the room gifts. That's been what
which are epic.
they are pretty epic.
Yeah, this past year.
Yep,
it was beautiful.
The first one started with the sign up there, our Beethoven quote,
which everyone knows and loves about Allatoona Band. I'm gonna put you in the frame a little bit more.
How's that?
Yep.
So that was the first one.
And this is one here.
Yep. There was a box there, and then the signs over the practice rooms. We had metronomes was one year. And so that's their big project for the year. So
that's
with
awesome.
the musical leadership, I really think that the classes feel, and you get a sense of that they're comfortable with each other. And I think that's a lot because we do a lot of small group performance and they work in small groups. And the very first thing that we'll do in their procedures this week are the procedures for large group and the procedures for small group. And then we go over that. So when I break them into small groups and I go into practice room 1, what number are you on? We're on number 3. So that means that I know that they've done...
In the sequence of procedures.
Yes.
Okay.
So I know that they've worked through that and then they are comfortable with that. And the big part of it is that when they give their recital on Friday, after they play, the group does 3 things that they really enjoyed and 3 things that they need to do better. And starting right off the bat with that, it gets everybody relaxed. And they know that the important thing is that as each of the individuals get better, the team gets better. And that's the whole focus of it.
Right. So you find that following those procedures help the students get to a place where they've got the autonomy to run those small groups.
Yep, absolutely.
For the rest of the year.
I coach them at the beginning, that, okay, here's what number 1 should look like. Number 1 is pick your group leader. Here's what that person needs to look like. They need to be assertive. They need to be kind. They need to be able to organize a rehearsal. They're going to be the one that facilitates. And I take them through each step and that this is what that looks like. And so now that they go in and they know what to do.
Does every student eventually have the opportunity to be a group leader?
If they want to, because some of them don't want to.
And they choose not to, and that's okay.
Yep, that's exactly right. And each time we do a small group, the personnel is different. So I do that randomly around the room.
How frequently do you put them in small groups?
We do it at the beginning of the year. It's probably in the first month, we'll have 3 opportunities. And then as we move through the year, we try to do at least 1 small group performance every week. So that might be a smaller section where they only need 2 rehearsals on it. At the beginning, I do larger sections so I can have them in the group a little longer. And then as we get to the concerts, we narrow that down. So
Are they working on concert literature in the small groups all the time? Okay.
Yep. I assign them a section of the repertoire, and then we work through that. And then on Friday, they perform that section of the repertoire for the whole class. Then we move to a different section of repertoire, and that's where the small group work is.
That's outstanding.
Yeah. And that's how they're evaluated too. They play their performances in small groups.
And is that a formative assessment?
Yeah.
So you talked about your seniors and how they start the year of leadership. Can you talk a little bit about the time you spend with your seniors at the start of the year? You do something I think that's really awesome to get to know them and what their goals are. And will you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I have individual conversations with them, and I have them really tell me what they would like to do and where they're going to go with the year. And then we try to set up, a lot of times I'll have them write their goals and see what they want to do. And we try to set up a situation where they're going to grow through that, and that we get to know them a little bit more personally, and that they interact a little bit more personally together too.
Now, are those goals just their musical goals and orchestra?
Musical and lifelong goals. What do they want to do? How can their position of leadership in the group help them achieve those goals outside of music? And the main thing is to get them wanting to continue to play, that this may not be their thing, but we want it to be part of their life. And what does that look like when they graduate?
That's awesome.
Yeah.